the whole point about queer theory is that you can queer or turn upside down reality and reinvent reality. And I did my master's in group analysis and transsexualism, and used Judith Butler and queer theory as the basis for it. So I chose upon myself to read the complete works of Judith Butler.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
Have you finished yet?
The thing is, I've always understood that a clever person can communicate in a really easy to understand manner.
Yes.
And if anyone is going out of their way to be complicated, you're kind of hiding something. And if you're clever enough, you communicate it in a way that you know the mindset of the person. Or maybe he's autistic. The mindset of the person, so you can communicate the way that, like doctors do.
Or if you weren't utterly possessed by ego. There is some ego in that highfalutin language, isn't there?
Yeah. So, I noticed one sentence was 2/3 of a page long. Literally, no joke. It was one sentence. I thought that can't be possible. You should be able to breathe.
Yeah. It's bad writing.
But her first book, Gender Trouble, I actually thought was brilliant.
Right.
And then she wrote Bodies That Matter, where she completely contradicts what she said. And in true queer theory tradition, she queered everything she'd written in the book before. So Gender Trouble, one of the things that's really useful to take home from Gender Trouble is she talked about the difference between a transsexual, a transvestite, and a drag queen. And I asked my medical students this, and they can never answer it, obviously. But the difference is the transvestite and the transsexual are very adherent to what they perceive the gender rules are. Men do this, women do this, and they stick to those rules. They're slavishly adherent to those rules and persecuted by them. Mm-hmm. The drag artist is much more advanced. They're going, you think these are your rules for what a woman is? I'm showing you how ridiculous your framework is. So there's something more advanced in the drag mind, because they're not ridiculing women, which is what people get wrong. They're ridiculing the gender framework.
Okay.
They're ridiculing what you believe gender is, because gender is like religion. It's a man-made organization of thinking and beliefs. It's not real. Gender is not real. If gender's doing a head in, then don't worry about it. Don't believe in it. It doesn't exist. Biological sex exists. Gender is like a religion. Just be a gender atheist. If it's bothering you that much.
Yeah. And so have you seen the studies they're talking about?
They're all nonsense. So there are no studies that show there's any difference between a transsexual brain and a non-transsexual brain. Some early studies were flawed because they were looking at brains which had already had exogenous estrogen given to them.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yes. So there is absolutely no evidence. By very definition, there cannot be a biological basis for it, because otherwise it would be like an intersex condition or disorder of sexual disorder. So there has to be no physical basis for it to be trans. It's purely in the mind. It's the only mental thing that we treat via the body.
God. I had assumed that what was really going on, I was trying to imagine what's gone on here. They've got these papers, and whenever I had a proper look at them, all it seemed to say was there was something different in the brain. It wasn't that they were more like women or more like men. It was just different. And I thought, well, maybe there's just more depression or more autism.
It's a trans fact. Like if you don't affirm your child, then they'll kill themselves. That's a made up, horrible, nasty, fake fact that they spurt out that silly social workers and other activists bleat out repeatedly, which encourages people that they should kill themselves if they're not affirmed. The other nonsense fact is the 1% regret rate.
Yes.
Nobody is followed up.
Because you said 26% of your patients.
Yes. So my patients are a certain sample. So my patients are people who come to the clinic wanting therapy. So that's a skewed sample. But none of my regretters, so 26% of my patients were regretters, none of them had been followed up ever. So when I asked the gender clinics, why are you not following them up? They said, because we've given them what they wanted. They're free to live their lives. And then GIDS didn't follow anyone up. So I invented an outcome measure. So in medicine, you have outcome measures to measure how useful your intervention is. So I had this research team when I lived in Australia, part of my midlife crisis, and we developed a questionnaire which takes about 15 minutes to do, self-report, and it measures how confused you are about your gender and how stable you are in it, irrespective of what that gender is. It's not measuring how male or female you are. You could be like genderqueer or whatever it is. It's not asking what your gender is. It's whether how stable you are and how happy you are. And that could be used as an outcome measure for any trans intervention, whether it's psychology, surgery, hormones. And so we invented a wheel that hadn't existed. We sent it to GIDS, we sent it to all gender clinics, saying, we've invented the wheel for you. It's free to use. I don't want any money. It's free. Not one of them replied. And I repeatedly wrote to the chief executive and medical director of the Tavistock, never replied. And I mean, that's strange because the Cass report criticized them for not collecting data. I've given them the tools, but they don't want to use it.
Is that still going on now? They still won't use it. They won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really feels like, I know a lot of
the tools
people,
in my book. The end of the book, there's and we did an adaptation for children. So it's called the GPSQ for adults, Gender Preoccupation and Disability Questionnaire, and the GPSQ2 for children and adolescents. And in Australia, the gender clinicians, many of whom are my friends, they piloted it out for the whole of Australia. And it's valid, reliable. We published it. But yeah, they won't use it.
That's insane.